What would you do if your ship crashed on a remote moon or planet and no one was coming to save you? No comms, no power, no food. Just a broken ship, limited food and water, and the creeping realization that you're completely alone. Star Citizen has always promised danger, but survival gameplay could finally make that danger feel real. If CIG leans into everything that they've shown, radiation, environmental hazards, life support, power, and crafting, then survival won't just be another gameplay loop. It'll be the system that holds everything together. And honestly, I think it could be one of the best parts of the game. Survival gameplay is one of the most underdeveloped yet potentially game-changing systems in Star Citizen. And the truth is, much of it is likely already on the horizon. Radiation was confirmed during last year's CitizenCon, and once the full resource management system is finally implemented in a future patch, ships will begin to behave like actual environments. Opening a door in a vacuum will vent your atmosphere. Leave it open too long and the internal temperature will drop to match the exterior. Life support, power routing, and thermal management will matter. Suddenly your ship becomes more than just a ride. It becomes your last line of defense. From radiation exposure and suit power failures to crafting components by hand and calling for rescue that may never come. These aren't just side systems. They could completely reshape how we explore, recover, and survive when everything goes wrong. If you've ever wondered what might happen if CIG lets storms force your ship to land, or introduces crash landings that leave you stranded on a hostile moon or planet, then this is the video that you'll want to see. Survival in Star Citizen doesn't begin when you're starving or freezing. It starts the moment things stop going according to plan. Maybe you pushed a little too far out on your last jump, only to run out of quantum fuel in deep space. Maybe a dust storm slammed into your descent path over a barren desert planet and threw your ship into the canyon wall. Or maybe a solar flare rolled through pyro just as you were EVAing outside your hull. That's when survival kicks in. Not when it's convenient, but when it's least expected. And once you're grounded, it's not just about the ship anymore. It's about the suit on your back, the gear you brought, and whether you planned for the worst. You might be kilometers away from your wrecked ship with hydration levels dropping rapidly. And that ache in your side, it's not going away. We already know radiation is coming, but it's not meant to be a temporary annoyance. It's going to have lasting effects on the player. You might not notice it right away. Maybe you get a little dizzy, your stamina drops faster, and later your health starts degrading more quickly. Eventually, repeated exposure could start affecting your imprint viability score, the very system tied to how and if you regenerate. So even if you do survive, the next time you die, you might not come back the same. Now let's say you're injured. A misstep or a steep drop fractures your leg. Or maybe you took a hard fall after an EVA mishap and your vitals are dropping. You've got one shot, a med gun. You inject yourself, stabilize the bleed or the fracture, but that only buys you time. These tools don't entirely heal you. They patch you up enough to move on. The real fix? You need a med bed. And if your ship is offline or you're nowhere near one, your options narrow fast. In a fully realized survival system, the severity of your injury could dictate everything. A limp slows you down. Internal bleeding could flare back up. A broken arm might just mean that you can't use two-handed tools. The more time you spend without treatment, the more fragile you become. It creates a gameplay loop built on tension, improvisation, and decision-making. Do you push towards your ship across open terrain, hoping your med gun holds out? Or do you shelter in place, pray for rescue, and conserve resources? This is where survival becomes more than just a side feature. It becomes the story you tell afterward. The time you made it out alive with a broken leg, no food, and a dying battery. Or the time that you didn't. Now, if you enjoy these deep dives like this, where we go beyond the surface and explore how these systems could actually change the way we play, consider subscribing. I've got more breakdowns coming just like this, and your support helps keep them going. But let's move on to how the world might just fight back. Star Citizen's planets already look dangerous, but imagine if they truly were. Because right now we're still missing two of the most impactful systems that could reshape survival: dynamic weather and environmental hazards. Imagine touching down on Microtech just before a storm rolls in. Visibility drops to zero, snow begins to accumulate on your hull, and temperatures plunge well below survivable levels. You're stuck on the ground because the storm winds are too strong to lift off, and you didn't bring a shelter or a thermal suit. This wouldn't just be for show. With working life support system and the future resource network system, CIG is already building the framework for real consequences. Open a door during a blizzard and your ship's internal temperature could begin to fall, matching the outside conditions. You might need to route power, regulate pressure, and maintain breathable air on your ship. It turns your ship into a survival chamber and turns every open hatch into a calculated risk. After all, at some point, oxygen could become finite on your ship. Storms could also directly affect your ship's systems. Electrical surges might disable your shields, turbulence could knock your thrusters offline, even lightning could overload a power relay and force a shutdown until it's repaired. Or automated systems like airlocks or doors could fail mid-use, leaving you exposed to the elements. Then there's radiation pockets, toxic gas vents, searing heat, and solar storms, the kind we expect to see in Pyro. These hazards aren't just environmental flavor, they're survival threats. A solar storm, for example, could shut down your suit's electronics and make navigation impossible. If you're caught unprotected, it may also impact your imprint viability, or it could outright kill you. And it's the death itself that takes the toll, chipping away at your imprint viability one traumatic respawn at a time. And what happens when your ship takes a hit during one of these events? This is where emergency repairs come into play. Whether you took damage from weather, radiation, or a bad landing, survival means getting your ship back online, not just waiting to die. In space, you might need to EVA with a multi-tool, reroute power manually through the resource network, replace a burned out component, or close a hull breach before your air vents into space. That's where survival gameplay shines, not in creating more loops, but in forcing you to solve problems under pressure with the tools that you have. Because when the world fights back, survival isn't just immersive, it's personal. Now, survival in Star Citizen won't just be about staying alive. It'll be about making do with what's left when everything else fails. We already have hostile fauna in-game now, with more coming. And if CIG follows through, it won't just be ambient life forms pacing around like what we had before server meshing. Predators could hunt in packs, track you by heat signatures or sound, and force you to think carefully about where you land and when you move. You might not even know they're nearby until it's too late. But they aren't your only threat. If your ship is damaged, engines blown, components fried, you might find yourself grounded with no spare subcomponents, no working backup, and no help coming. That's when crafting stops being a side feature and becomes your lifeline. You'd have to step outside, multi-tool in hand, and start scanning for salvageable materials, metallic deposits, synthetic compounds, or rare planetary resources that could be refined or broken down into crafting components. And here's the catch. If your suit has no power, your scanner might not work. You'll be blind with no mineral overlay, no terrain analysis, and no way to know what's under your feet. You're just guessing in the dirt. Armor batteries confirmed by CIG as future subcomponents aren't just for environmental protection. They may power your HUD, life support, temperature regulation, and your ability to interact with the world. If your suit goes dark, so do your chances of finding what you need. Now, assuming you can gather materials, the next hurdle is, can you craft what you need? Do you have a portable workbench on board, or a fabrication kit? If not, maybe you'll need to craft that first. assuming the system allows for it. You might have to source basic components just to build the tools you need to begin a proper repair. And if crafting isn't possible where you are, your only option may be to find a derelict outpost or mining site and hope it still has a functioning terminal you can use. That's not a detour, that's a desperate mission. Even if you do manage to build what you need, survival is still a balancing act. You're managing power cells, medical tools, food, hydration, gear condition, and now predators too. Fauna itself might force you to make hard choices. Travel during the day where they're active but visible, or try your luck at night, when your flashlight makes you a beacon. The survival loop in Star Citizen doesn't need to be a hard reset of the core experience. It just needs to ask the right questions. Are you prepared? Did you bring backup systems? Do you know how to improvise when things go wrong? Because when you're on a hostile moon with no resources, low suit power, and something just roared in the distance, that's not a mission anymore. That's your story. Not every survival story has to end in death. Sometimes you get out, barely. Rescue gameplay, for example, could be the missing link that turns isolation into connection. Imagine activating a beacon as your power fails, hoping someone sees the signal before the storm buries your ship. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's an org mate, or maybe it's a complete stranger answering a distress call for credits and rep. Either way, your survival becomes someone else's mission, and that opens up a whole new loop of gameplay. And it might all come down to comms. Right now, comms arrays let us track players with crime stats and determine security zones. But in the future, I'd love to see them play a much larger role. If CIG leans into their potential, integrating them more directly with the mobiGlas, the mission system, and player beacons, then being able to call for help might depend entirely on whether a nearby comms array is active. So what happens if it's not? What if the array is down, disabled, or doesn't even exist in the system that you're in? Then the answer would be no one's coming. Your beacon doesn't register. You can't call for a pickup, a tow, or even a supply drop unless you message a friend or orgmate offline. You're left to figure it out on your own, and that changes everything. With imprint viability and death of a spaceman on the table, surviving isn't just about convenience. It's about preserving your character. Each death carries weight, so escaping that situation without a respawn, without external help, becomes a story you remember. Long-term recovery matters too. Maybe you get your ship functional again, but you're still stranded with no med pens, no water, and a damaged suit. Now you're scanning the terrain for something, anything that might keep you going. A cave, an outpost, a wreck. The world itself becomes part of the puzzle. That's what survival gameplay could bring to Star Citizen. Not a burden, but moments of intensity that break up the usual loop and force you to adapt. It wouldn't be constant, but when it happens, it leaves a mark. It connects all the pieces. Rescue gameplay gives medical and utility ships a purpose. Engineers become critical. Comms become lifelines, and suddenly every choice you made before the crash, the extra fuel tank, the backup battery, the component, or even possibly a survival kit, feel like they mattered. Because in that moment when the comms array is down and your beacon doesn't ping, you're not just stuck, you're completely alone. And how you survive that is what makes the verse feel real. Survival in Star Citizen doesn't have to be a constant threat, but when it strikes, it should leave an impression. It's in those moments when your gear fails, when the environment turns against you, when no one answers your beacon, that the universe feels more alive and dangerous. If CIG leans into systems like weather, power, radiation, repairs, and recovery, then survival won't just be another gameplay loop. It'll be the glue that binds the rest of the experience together. But what do you think? Would you want to see deeper survival systems like these in Star Citizen? Do you think they'd add more tension, more purpose, or would they be too punishing? Let me know in the comments. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to go above and beyond in supporting the channel, then consider becoming a member. You'll get shoutouts in every video, early access to upcoming content, exclusive Discord access, and help keep these deep dives and discussions coming. And if you want to explore how crafting could tie directly into this, check out the video I did breaking down everything CIG has shared so far about how crafting might work in the future. It's a system that could completely change how we prepare and how we survive. As always, thanks for watching. Fly safe, pilots, and I'll see you in the verse. Havoc out.